The year was 1963. My father, brother John, and me. From our present home, we headed west with our loaded truck and a cow, I guess. Yeah, it was a cow. To our new farm, we made our way to that special place where I was raised. Memories long gone, but once alive, and faded now, 'cause I was only 5. That big old house stood upon a hill. The precious thoughts it brings back to me still. All the good things bleeding with the bad. Bring those tears again, because it's sad. For all the moments that we shared, and now they're gone. That big oval driveway, as we drove up to the door, one vivid thought returns. I can't remember more. A 5-year-old, alone, sitting on the closed-in porch, somehow found a knife and cut his finger. Not much force. My brother I remember, but not much of what he said. So long ago it was that in my thoughts that day is dead. Not long after this, my 2 brothers headed west to seek their futures in this life. They were on their quest. I don't blame them for leaving, for Dad was difficult those days, but can't deny that there were times I wish that they had stayed. Perhaps some things might have been different for me. I did okay, but just sometimes ponder another reality. With 5 sisters, odd man out is sometimes a bit tough, but mostly good times I recall. There was always lots of love. The farm had many fields of green, cedar hardwoods, and a stream. Sunny days of fishing, water rushing past my feet, a sea trout heading for my lure, my heart would skip a beat. Trees they were, my best friends. I know they helped me through. All the times that life was tough, they kept me straight and true. The old house had no indoor plumbing. A tap was all we had. But the old settlers, they survived. It's really not that bad. Gravity brought spring water from the woods into the barn, then on its way to the kitchen, where all winter it would run. The water, it was cold as ice, and would surely numb your hands, and got compliments from all our guests, the freshest in the land. Daily chores on the farm involved the whole family. My father, not that organized. Time was his worst enemy. But raising pigs was his real forte, and in that role he excelled. Approaching on a larger scale, he surely would have done well. Fiddleheads in spring, and vegetables from summer gardening, milking cows and cutting hay, selling piglets and some pork. Dad was living in the past, and hay was handled with a fork. The drudgery of making butter, churning it from cream. To the farmer's market it would go, along with many things. Anything that we could sell to help make ends meet, and we never had to worry about enough food to eat. January 25th, 2014. The old house still stood upon the hill, its age surely evident. As time, it took its toll. I imagine it was trembling as the fire engine turned its way. Time stopped for a second as we stared at it that day. Images flooding back, minutes, hours, days. 51 years ago, a small boy sat on that porch, surrounded by the house that raised him. As the fireman strolled up to the door and tossed his flare onto the floor, the flames appeared, and soon they spread. A surreal wave engulfed us all, filling us with dread. The flames, they grew so fierce, soon becoming immense. Thick black smoke rolled, and the heat was intense. With wrenching hearts, we watched the frame as it crumbled, the living trees that died for it and gave it form, turning to dust. Does a building possess a spirit when it's been lived in? I don't know. I think so. All I know is a part of all our memories were turned to ash along with that old house that day. And where our spirits are headed, I hope and pray that those precious moments we lived can be revisited. For all those days I wish I had held them longer in my arms. While I was growing up in that house, we had many instances of flue fires. I remember one in particular. It was the middle of the night and I was awakened by a roaring sound. We had a wood stove in the kitchen and a large furnace in the cellar that had the pipe go up through the living room and then passed up through the second level of the house. This pipe was just a plain, thin, black steel pipe. The Selkirk insulated pipe was in the attic. My bedroom door was only about 10 feet from that steel pipe. And when I woke up to that roaring sound, that pipe was cherry red for about the whole height of the upstairs, 6 feet. The sound of fire roaring in that pipe was scary, I'll tell you, just like a train. My father was panicking, and you could really hear Dad when he was upset. He ran and got a burlap bag and a pail of water. He frantically began to soak the bag and apply it to the pipe. He had already closed the damper on the furnace, which helped somewhat. But when a pipe gets coated with creosote and ignites, it will keep on burning until it burns itself out. The fire department came that night, put it out, and then I believe they threw a flare in and burnt the rest out, keeping it under control. They did that a few times through the years. That was one of many flue fires in that old house. One afternoon, I think Dad was in the woods picking fiddleheads or something, and I looked up and saw flames shooting out the chimney. I ran like hell and shut the draft. Mom called the fire department. I got the jute bags of water out until they showed up. Yet another time, it happened again, and I was at work. My sister called me and told me. The fire department came, and it had burnt a hole down through the roof, which had cedar shingles, and they had to put a lot of water down through to put the fire out. We put steel on after that one. Watching the house burn that day made me think of all of them, and how it is a miracle that it survived as long as it did. Both my father, mother, and 2 sisters have now passed on. At 63 years old, I hope I'm fortunate to get a few more laps around the track of life before my journey. But I know that their spirits are experiencing something I already know in my soul is out there. Anytime you're at your lowest point in life and feel life has no purpose, do what I do. Take the darkest, clearest night and look up at the stars in the sky and understand you aren't seeing them all. All of that can't be for nothing, and I don't believe it's anything like most people envision. It's going to be literally out of this world.